why don't you try running back and tackling for 3 months? He goes, if you do that and it doesn't improve your game, I will never ask you to run back and track back. When he came in, she said, oh, Jacques Maghoma wants to see you. And he was like, who? Man without purpose is a dead man, because once that's gone, there's really nothing out there.
So, Jax, welcome to the podcast. My first question is, where did your career begin?
We'll take it back. So I started off playing Sunday League for Winchmore Hill. And then I got scouted from there at the age of 12. Got like a 2-week trial at Tottenham. I was buzzing. I grew up a Spurs fan, and when I first came into the country, I lived in Tottenham, so I lived probably 2-3 minutes from the stadium. So just getting a trial at Spurs, was a dream come true for me, and only to be shattered after 2 weeks. Dave Kerslake was the coach there, and after 2 weeks, he pulled me. And he said, listen, at the moment, you're not good enough. And we got better players at the academy, and we're not going to offer you anything. And, that was that. Devastated at 12 years old, being told, I wasn't good enough. And, I wasn't going to be basically playing for, the team that I support. I was gutted, devastated. But it didn't last long. Life goes on, and I've got this mentality where it doesn't matter how many times I get knocked down, and just get up and try again and again. And that's exactly what I did. 3 years later, down the line, same manager, Dave Kerslake. It was a summer camp at White Hart Lane, where they used to have like the AstroTurf at the stadium on the side. And I was about 14 going on 15, and it was a summer camp, and I went there. I think it was like 5 weeks, and I went for the first 2 weeks. So the first week went really well. And the second week coming up, the coach that was taking it asked me, he's like, oh, you signed at Spurs, aren't you? I was just like, no. He goes, are you at an academy? I was like, no, I'm not. And he was like, so I was like, but I had a trial there when I was 12 though. And he was like, oh, he was the coach. I was like, Dave. He's like, okay. And funny enough, there was a little there was an upstairs bit where you could only see into the grass, into the astro bit, but you couldn't see out. It's like one of those mirror things, like a mirror glass. And Dave was there, so he watched the session, and after the session, he came up. He came down where we had lunch. We was having sandwiches, and he came in. He was like, "Oh, so good to see you." And back then, the way he spoke. You could speak to, to kids in a way you could probably speak to adults. At the moment, it's a little. I don't know if I can swear on here. It was a little bit more like, But yeah, it was good to see him. And he invited me back for summer trial. At White Hart Lane, at Middleton House. Sorry, that's where they done where we started training in the summer, and then moved to Chigwell in the winter time. And went there after, I think it was like 3 days. John Moncur watched the training session, and he said, "We're going to offer you a contract." And the rest is history, really.
You said that you moved to London as a young person. How was that in terms of that transition, coming into a new culture, a new way of life?
Yeah, like I said, the family made a decision. Obviously, I'm migrated here. I'm immigrated here with my mum, my dad, and my brother, my sister as well. So I came here in this country when I was 10. And you had to adjust that. You leave everything behind. You leave your cousins, your uncles, your aunties back home. And, it was tough because you had to start fresh. You had to pick up the language really quickly. You had to make new friends at school, which is always daunting for especially for young kids. You guys, as soon as I came here, I think I spent like 6 months in year 6, and then I was straight in year 7. And I had to adjust really quickly. And it's not until I'll probably, it was tough. It was tough, but one thing I would say is I had really good upbringing. My mom and dad, helped me loads. Made it as easy as they could make it for me, which was really helpful, and I'm really grateful for that. And the time that they spent. There's so many things behind just the man that you look in here. And it's all down to the family as well.
Do you think that's why? Do you think that's where football comes into play? Then it was maybe an opportunity for you to express yourself, and it's a worldwide language. Football's played everywhere. Do you think that's the reason why you were so driven and determined to be a pro footballer?
Yeah, like 100%. I think one thing football really does to young kids or young teenagers or anyone who's involved in football will tell you that it matures you really quickly. Like you have to be you haven't got time to be crying, to be sulking. It literally just moves on. So like you have a game on a Saturday, then you have a game on, like you're constantly just and you have to be in check with your emotions. Like you can't be up and down. You got to try and be stable. And the ones who can mentally and and control their emotions and also work harder than the rest, definitely are the ones who you'd see progress quicker than the other ones.
I get the feeling determination, sacrifice, easier said than done with all the influences that might have been at a young age, especially in London. How do you keep that focus? How do you keep that drive?
I would say it was easier. It was easier then than it would be easier now. I think it's harder now for young kids to stay away from all I'll probably say the distractions that they have now, especially like the biggest thing would be just social media in general. We didn't have social media back when, I was growing up. So it was different times. And, if we wanted to go play football, like you come home and you go outside and you go play football with your mates. You go knock for your friend next door. It wasn't like, okay, I'm gonna WhatsApp him, or I'm gonna send him I'm gonna ring him. Like we didn't have phones like that. We didn't have WhatsApp. Probably the only thing that you had was like a MySpace or MSN. Do you know what I mean? But do you know what I mean? Like it wasn't like it is today. So it was easier not to be distracted back then, because you just didn't. Apart from your area, my state where I grew up, I didn't know anything else. What was going on, in West London, in wherever. I didn't know what was going on. The only thing I knew was I'll go out, play football. And I think that's what kids miss these days, is the fact, the outdoors activities that we had. They probably, they get in and they go straight on the PlayStation, or, they're on the iPads or phones. So I think there's more distractions now than there was back then. So for me, it was football or nothing really.
Get your opportunity at Tottenham Hotspur, and then you find yourself maybe thinking about lower leagues to get footballing opportunities. What was that transition like, and what was the thought process and the mentality? I presume moving away from London as well was something you had to kind of cope with.
Yeah, I gotta be honest though. When I was at Spurs, I never looked at other leagues. Like I never thought of League Two, never thought League One, never thought Championship. Like my focus was literally just like making it at Tottenham. Like I didn't know anything outside of Tottenham. Like that's how, like, it was just like a tunnel vision. You can almost say like, oh, you would live in like in a bubble. Like it was a bubble. Like go training, that's all I wanted to do. Like I never thought, oh, if I don't make it, this is where I'm gonna end up. No, it wasn't that kind of thought. But I think after the big injury that I had as a 17, 18-year-old at Spurs, which kind of, shaped my career the way it went, I would say. But I'm still grateful for the career that I had, especially like I think I've told this story before. After the injury that I had, and I needed surgery, got told that I might not be able to play again. So that was hard to hear, like just being told at 17, 18, like I got my dreams, I'm seeing myself playing, White Hart Lane, and being told that, can't play, you might not be able to play again if the operation, it depends how you recover and whatnot. And then eventually coming back and then making a decision, to go and, and fend for myself really and make a name for myself elsewhere, because the opportunity at Tottenham wasn't there anymore. I think other players came through, just to name a few, Tom Huddleston, Jake Livermore, Andros Townsend. They did so much, Danny Rose. There's so many other talents that came through, and my time was limited, and I knew that at Delta Apt, you had Gareth Bell already in there, so Jamie O'Hara. So my time was limited, and I knew I had to leave. And I made the decision to go get as many games as possible. And the best club that offered me something was Burton Albion. Really good club, family club. Paul Piscasilido. They literally got promoted that season. So I made that decision alongside, obviously, family. We made that decision to say, listen, I'm 21, not played a league game, not played a competitive game, I would say. And, I think it was time for me to leave. It was sad. I may have been, I think for about a week, I was a little bit heartbroken. It's like your ex, leaving your ex, being like that first week is hard, so it was tough, but, I'm here. So definitely made a good decision.
Were you driven to maybe prove people wrong?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I think in life in general, we're always trying to prove people, not people in general, but prove to yourself first that you're not a failure, that you can do it, that you are good enough, that you can make it, that you're, that you can be one of the best. That I think everyone should aspire to always prove themselves first. And along the way, you're going to prove critics wrong. You're going to prove other people wrong. I didn't go out my way to go and prove other people wrong. I just wanted to prove to myself that, if I work hard enough, if I dedicate myself enough, and if I do all the right things, that I am good enough and I can make it. So that was my mindset at the time. I wasn't thinking about what other people. I was just thinking about what can I do to become better and to make it.
Yeah. So you mentioned Paul Pesky-Salido and then Gary Rowett. How influential was he on your career? Because he obviously took you to Birmingham as well, didn't he?
Yeah. So Paul signed me, and Gary was the assistant. Me and Gary didn't get on at first. We clashed so much. Yeah, we clashed. I was a young kid. Although you say 21's not young, but I was young. Come from London. I'm in the I'm living in Burton on Trent. I don't know where. I've never been somewhere that far outside of London, and I didn't know what was going on. Do you know what I mean? And I was just like, what is going on? And that first 6 months really hit me, because I had to grow up quickly, because I got myself a little flat to live in. The money that I was on at Tottenham wasn't the same. So my lifestyle completely changed. So that first 6 months, it was it was like I didn't know what was going on. So like, yeah, me and Gary clashed at first because I was like little bit, I was stubborn. I was a little bit like on the verge of like a maverick. Like I wanted to do what I wanted to do. Yeah, but Paul understood me as a person. Like I had loads of chats, and it's not until Gary took over, became the manager when Paul resigned after the second season. It's not until he took over that we had a sit down, started talking, and then started, getting past our differences. Him understanding me, and I understand where he's coming from. And then he started challenging me in ways that, maybe other people weren't challenging me. And one of the biggest ones was, I could never forget. Like he told me, he's like, why don't you try running back and tackling for 3 months? He goes, if you do that and it doesn't improve your game, yeah, I will never ask you to run back and track back. And honestly, I says, all right, cool, bet. I said, I'll do it. I'll do it for 3 months. I said, if it don't work, Gaz, you never see me track back. And that changed the whole way I viewed, like I played football, because as soon as I started doing it, I started getting more of the ball. I started getting, like, I got fitter, I got stronger, mentally, like my character, like I started, the way I started growing up, like my character build, like was really good. And also what it did for my teammates is it also showed that, although I was skillful on the ball, that I could do the other side of the game, and they respected that more than what I could do on the ball.
Just on reflection of that transition, do you think it benefited you in terms of your longevity of your career?
Yeah, 100%. It definitely, like I said, it definitely matured me a lot. Not only that, I think in terms of, I think everyone in sports need, or not in sports, I think in life, you need to have some sort of ego. You need to believe in yourself first, because no one else is going to do it for you. I think you need to have that little bit of arrogance, but it's a humble arrogance or a humble ego. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying like, start treating people in a certain way, which I've never done. But I think you need to have that, confidence within yourself, but also be humble and respect others.
My next question really was that transition from Burton to Birmingham. You must have saw something in you to obviously take you to Birmingham and have a bit of a spell there. Is that right?
Yeah. With guys, like that last season that I had at Burton Albion was really good. Like I said, constantly challenging me. And that last season, I ended up with 18 goals and 14 assists. It was probably my best season, like at the time, professionally, scoring so many goals from out wide. I had a really, really good season. And, I was in team of the year, player of the season. I literally won everything at the club. And, and that was almost like, it was a big achievement for me. Like I said, like to be able to prove to myself that I can. And along the way, I sacrificed so much. A lot of people think that it just came naturally. No, like there was a lot of sacrifice that, that season that I've made. There's so many changes in my life that I made that season. And I like literally like just little things like not having the car. Like I used to like literally walk to training or jog to training, or get a taxi to training. A car was almost like a distraction where I could get up when I wanted, or I could drive back to London, or I could drive out, go restaurant, go here. So it was a distraction. So I wanted to get rid of every little bit of distraction that I could have, and literally just focused on football. And, and like I said, that season I done really well, kept in contact with Gary, got my move to Sheffield Wednesday, spent 2 years there. And I think we Birmingham played us away. It was like in my last year, and we played we was at home and Birmingham was away. And after the game, spoke to Gaz and he was like, "Oh, what you doing at the end of the season?" I was like, "I'm out of contract." He goes, "I'm coming to Birmingham." And he was like, "Oh, we'll keep in contact." He goes, "Don't sign anywhere." And I just thought like he's just bantering or whatever. And then in the summer, had a few options, but having worked with him before, kind of made my mind up because I knew exactly what I was getting myself into, going back and working with Gaz. And like I said, spent an amazing 5 years there at Blues.
Do you think he was treated unfairly at Birmingham?
Who, Gary?
Yeah, in terms of him getting sacked.
I want to say yeah, but like in football is ruthless. Do you know what I mean? There's no unfair, there's no fair, there's no pity. No one's gonna be like, oh yeah, he was like. It is what it is. Like, it's a business. And honestly, I don't know whether he wanted to go or he wanted to stay. He ended up getting a really good job at Derby. At the end of the day, because he's a really good manager. But yeah, I was just surprised that, the board or the chairman would let him go because we were doing so well that season. We were third or fourth in the league. So it was just a massive surprise to me and to everyone else. And, it was sad to see him go because, like I said, he gave me a chance at Birmingham. And he really had really good players. I think Damari Gray was still there when I joined. Had Cottrell there, you had Andrew Shinney. There's so many good players at the time. And, for him to bring me in, and like I said, the only way I could repay him was give him performances and, and score goals and be a team player, which I thought I did really well for him, which I've always done. And I still keep in contact with him. So, he's probably like I'll probably say my favorite out of all the managers I worked under.
Yeah. In terms of those managers then, so there was Zola, there was Redknapp, there was Cottrell that came in as well. I can tell by your face, you're a little bit... No?
Yeah, it was a tough time because you think about it, in a 5-year period, I think it was 7 managers. I think 7 managers. So if we go through, so we had Gary Rowett, Zola, Cottrell, Harry Redknapp. Who else?
Was he at Spurs when you were there, Harry Redknapp?
Yeah. He to be fair, when the year that I left to go to Burton, I ended up speaking to him, and and he said, "Listen." So I'll go knock on his office. So I knock on his office, and the secretary comes in and goes, he's not in right now, but he'll be here in 5 minutes. I was like, can you tell him I want to see him? So she went in she said, oh, when he came in, she said, oh, Jacques Maghoma wants to see you. And he was like, who? I don't even know him. So I ended up going in his office, and he was like, listen, lad, I don't know who you are. I'm literally just working with the first team. And this was the period where I was like, before him, with Martin Yo and Chris Hughton, I was training with the first team. I was up there. And then, things changed. Ronde Ramos came in, and then, you end up not being involved. You're just with the reserves. And he, like, when I spoke to him, at first he was like, listen, I don't know who you are, but I can help you on going out on loan, getting some games, and then we'll see where we are come at the end of the season. And he sent me to Bournemouth. But the problem with Bournemouth is that they didn't have a chairman. They were literally, they had no money. So I would literally have to go there and literally just play for free, basically. That's what it was. And I was just like, no, I can't do that. I got to live, do you know what I mean? And I ended up going to Burton, but then Bournemouth got back-to-back promotions that season. It's so crazy, isn't it? Like decision making, or little things. But like I said, I think my path it's meant to be the way it was. Yeah. So with Harry was always good, but I think when he came to Birmingham, I don't think it was the right time where it was the right move for the club. I think it was more so, to me, it just felt more like trying to get a name in and the money, he didn't feel like, okay, we're going to get a manager in that's going to help us build the club and the team. It's more so we get a name in to try and, it didn't feel right.
How do you deal with that change in dressing room? Does that impact the players? I presume transfers are impacted as well. Like, does it cause a little bit of animosity with the dressing room? Does it cause confusion? One manager's playing a certain way and you fit the style, and then all of a sudden someone else comes in and it changes the shape of the team, and you question where you fit within that, and they've got their own culture, their own philosophy. How'd you deal with that? Because at Birmingham, as you said, there was so many changes, and that must be that must cause some chaos within dressing rooms.
Like, we had a good change room, though. I gotta say, we had a really good changing room. Like, the 5 years I spent there, like the dressing room was tops. We had really good lads. We had some senior players in there, and it didn't really. There were some. I think I'll probably say one or two managers that probably, which affected the dressing room a little bit. But the rest weren't that bad. I think I'll probably say Gary Monk was really good. I'll say Steve Cottrell was okay at times. Was good. Yeah, but then the rest, I'll probably say that there weren't good times, to be honest. There weren't good times.
What's your thought process coming towards the end of that? So I presume your contract's coming up. Is that quite daunting? Is that quite a scary thought process? Because you're thinking, what's next? What do I do?
That's probably, there's a time, like when you're young, we literally used to just go out training, kick balls. Like, first thing that you see, like, you kick balls about, and you look at the senior players and they're like stretching their back and they're stretching their groin, their hamstrings, they're moving really stiff. And as young players, like, you're probably looking at, like, we used to look over and be like, oh, you're so stiff. Like, I just banter them because they're so stiff, and because, trust me, your time will come. It never happened for me. I was never that stiff, but so I was quite lucky that I escaped that. But yeah, when it came to the end, it was a decision that had to be made. I didn't really like the way it ended at Blues with me. I think I would have liked to finish on a high and get a game, or the last game and whatnot.
Yeah.
But it was miscommunications, and at the time, that, especially after COVID, it wasn't great. But like I said, I still got love for the club. I think it gave me, like I said, my best 5 years. But yeah, when it comes to the decision of retiring or not playing again, it's the hardest decision that I've ever had to make, because you never want to stop doing something that you grew up loving.
I suppose it's shifting your identity as well. All you've known is to play football, and you're perceived to be a footballer, and everyone knows you as Jacques Maghoma, the football player. And when that's taken away, all of a sudden, that's that shift of, okay, it's who I am. My identity has to change to some extent. I have to find new avenues of where I go with my life, and that can be a trouble. That can be a troubling time for some players, and some players do struggle coping with that. Have you ever had that issue in terms of coping with that exit method?
No, not so much. Because I've never labelled myself as Jacques Maghoma, the footballer, because, like I said, all I ever wanted to do was to play football. I never wanted to become a footballer. All I wanted to do was to play football. Football was a passion of mine that I wanted to do. I've never labelled myself as if someone asked me like who I'd never say, oh, I'm Jacques Maghoma, the footballer. Do you know what I mean? Like, it just sounds weird. Like, I've never labeled myself that. I think society in general labels people. You know, he's attached to that job, so that's him. She's attached to this career, so that's her. So I think as the way I grew up, I just grew up as myself, as Jacques Maghoma. And football was my job. Football became my job. You know, at first I think it starts off as a passion, a hobby, and it becomes your job because you need to perform and you need to work. You know, you still have to get up in the morning and go training. So I don't think I've had problems in terms of detaching myself from being called a footballer. I think that, but I would agree that, you know, some players do struggle with that, and they also struggle with maybe the next step after football. I think it was hard for me to find something that I was really passionate about after retiring. I would admit that it was hard for me to kind of say, like, what do I want to do next, almost. And, you know, and I made a decision that I wanted to stay in football. I wanted to coach. I wanted to give my knowledge to young people, to young players, not only young players, but to players even playing now, to kind of give them, you know, advice, if I can, on what to do and what not to do, things to avoid, things to not avoid, how to behave, you know, the mentality that you should have, what it takes.
Where'd you get your grounded nature from then? Because I can imagine being a superstar, you know, fans love you, you know, the salaries that might come with football and the exposure to celebrity lifestyle, etc., and the luxury life of being a sports star.
Yeah.
I get the sense that you're quite grounded, and you mentioned community and giving back. And
Yeah.
where does that come from, Jax? Is that down to your upbringing? Is that down to the community that you serve? I'm just intrigued.
Yeah, just the way I was brought up, like family. I'm family orientated. Mom and dad, you know, like I said, it wasn't like I grew up with nothing, but we weren't, you know, silver spoon in my mouth, like, or anything like that. But I think the family values, I think one thing my dad always told me was like, there's one time he said something to me. He said, I don't care how much money you make. I don't care who you become. I don't care where you're going. But one thing you will have is respect for this family, is respect for the people around you, and respect for yourself. And I think that's stuck with me because I do see quite a lot of people think that they can buy themselves, they can buy their way. You know, you can buy respect. You can't buy respect. You got to earn respect from people, and you got to, you know, you can't just, like, and yeah. So like I've kept that in. I don't want to go too deep into it. Like, sound like a philosopher, but you know, I think
Please do, mate.
no, and I think in general, like I got brought up around respect, and money was never something to idolize or to, you know, to put really high in value. Like, I think first of all, is God. Like, I'm Christian, so I believe in God, and then family. You know, I think those two come hand to hand, and like I said, I think part of my decision to also retire pretty early was because of family. I got a young family, and they needed me, especially my boys. One of my oldest sons, he's into football. He used to come watch me, so I think that's probably why. Because the other two are too young, so I think because he used to come watch me a lot, I think he got into it, and he's at Arsenal under 12, and he's doing really well. And me traveling all the time for the probably last 10 years since he was born has been really tough on him. So I think a lot of the decision was around family, to not carry on. And I think it was the right decision because, like I said, there's nothing more important than family. They're the ones that's going to carry on the bloodline and the name.
One thing that I was going to ask was that transition. You mentioned managers and the transitions of clubs, and you mentioned Tottenham and going down the leagues and seeing out your career. Have you ever struggled with maybe self-doubt, or is there anything maybe impacted your mental health in regards to playing football? Did you ever lose motivation? You mentioned your young family and playing around Christmas time, for example, was probably something that you did, and not being around them, as well as, you know, being a family man as well. Could you maybe give us an example around maybe self-confidence, motivation, and mental health where it might have impacted your career as a footballer?
Mental health is a really touchy subject. I don't know how. It's a touchy one because I think, in general, I do think people can get out of their mental health situations and mental health, the way that they feel. I don't think it's something that, I don't think it's a state that you can stay in forever. I think if you work on yourself, you can definitely improve. I'm not saying that it will just go away, but I think you can definitely improve the state of your mind. I think if you take control of your situation, of any situation that you're in, and start improving on yourself, I do think that you can become a better person, and you can become healthier, and you can become happier in life in general. So I think, in terms of, did I suffer with a part of my career where it was really tough mentally? Yeah, I did. How did I come out of that? Literally just by, working towards my goal, having a target that I needed to reach, doing something that I love, which was football, playing week in, week out, being on the pitch, which helps. I think for footballers, the worst thing that could ever happen is you not playing, you not being involved, you being on the bench, you being sidelined. Let's say a manager doesn't, fancy you, or like he doesn't have you in his plans. You end up training with the youth team because the club wants you out. I think that's when, I think people really struggle mentally in football or in sports. Fans, get abused from fans. But then the only way I believe that you can get out of that state, of that downward state, is to work upon yourself, to work on yourself in life in general. Just work on your life and get out of that state, because I don't think that state is permanent. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if I'm putting it right, because I don't think you can stay in that state forever. It's not a permanent state. It's like a temporary, where you just have to think of ways to try and improve your mental health, basically.
Do you think that maybe that's what the issue is in terms of around mental health, is that we don't educate ourselves on how to deal with certain situations, how to deal with maybe stresses and coping with certain things that might happen during our careers, during our life, that there's a limitation in terms of what we know, and that might impact that kind of influences your point, really, is we can get out of the condition that we're in, but sometimes we don't know how to start that process. Do you get what I mean?
I understand what you mean, but a lot of the times people have already been in that situation. There's so many times where because people do ask me, like, how do you cope with this? How do you cope with that? How do you deal with this? And I'm like, okay, I can guarantee you that whatever's going on in your life right now, that you've probably had similar situations happen before, and you've managed to still be here. You've managed to still keep going. You've managed to, to push forward one step at a time, and you've managed to now be, now another obstacle is in your way, but you got to think back of how you got out of that first obstacle that got you to this obstacle. There's always going to be obstacles, but people know how to get out of it. But it's just daunting because it's like, oh, I got to go through this again. That feeling, that horrible feeling is like, I know what this feeling is. And it's like, I don't want to have that feeling again. So that then you start getting anxiety. Like, do you know what I mean? Like you start getting, and you start thinking like, if that happens again, I'm going to have like, panic attack. And it's almost just saying, like I always tell people, listen, you've been through that. There's so many situations where you've gone through hard times, where you've gone through tough times, where you've gone through when things are not going right for you, when, you're down at the bottom and you've somehow got out of it. And now the next obstacle's in your face. You just got to face it with that same purpose to saying, okay, I've come out of this. Now I'm here. How do I not get on that next ladder to get myself where I need to go? And, I try to tell you, fear is probably one of the biggest obstacles for us as humans, because we always think, what if that don't happen? What if I fail? What if I don't do this? What if, he says, I'm going to be judged because I'm going to say this, it's that fear and that first step. I tried to tell her, I said, one of the hardest thing is, like people say, oh, when you get knocked down, you get back up. You're going to get back up anyway. Like, you're not going to stay on the floor forever. You're going to get back up. You're going to wake up one day. You can stay in bed for 3 months, but you're going to think, oh, do you know what? Let me go outside. So you're eventually going to get up. But the hardest thing for me is to go and do what you just failed on by trying to improve on it. That's the hardest thing. The easiest thing that you could do is, do you know what? I tried. I'm not going to do it again. No, go back, see what went wrong, and then improve on it and do it again, and then do it again, and then keep doing it until you keep improving and get to where you need to get. Because like people, you get knocked down 10 times, you're gonna get up 11 times. Well, you're gonna have to, like, do you know what I mean? Like, unless you're gonna have to. Eventually, you're gonna have to get up and you're gonna have to move forward. But it's not about just moving forward. It's about doing. If you really love what you're doing and you're passionate about where you want to go, you're gonna do it again, but you're gonna try and improve every single time. And it don't matter if you fail 99 times. All you need is that one time for it to succeed, and then the rest is history.
You mentioned your faith and being a religious man. Did that help in terms of maybe those stresses, those beliefs to do it again or attempt certain things?
Yeah, 100%. My faith has definitely helped me. Me believing that there is a higher power that drives me every single day, or that drives me to have so much passion into what I do. But, excuse me, I will say that there was times where I did question certain things when things didn't go well. Like I said, like we're not perfect. Like, we are humans. Like, we do doubt. Like you're saying, self-doubt. You do start questioning, is that really good? Like, but I think that's what faith is. Faith is just is blindly following, what you believe in, because tomorrow has not happened, but I believe that I'm going to wake up and see my kids. So that faith keeps us going. Hope keeps us going. Having a purpose keeps us going. I think us as humans need a purpose. We definitely need a purpose to look forward to keep striving towards. I always say a man without purpose is a dead man, because once that's gone, there's really nothing out there for you to do. So yeah, I think faith, blindly following, but believing that it is going to happen, it is going to come. So yeah, faith has helped me so much, not only in my career, but just in my life in general, and with my young kids, with my family, everyone. Yeah, so it has helped me. Yeah.
What are your hopes for the future? What's the next steps for Jacques Maghoma?
The next steps for me would definitely be to go into coaching. I've given myself a target, or a time that I'd want to be in and around, senior football. And, for me to learn, to study the game, to really learn, not only, and use my knowledge, not only from a playing career, but, from, and learn from the people who's actually in the business now, I've got so many good people around. I'll just name one, like John McDermott, who's been like a mentor at the moment, giving me so much good advice. And there's so many others. Wayne Burnett, 23 manager at Spurs. And I could keep going on naming these people, because they've been so helpful in terms of like getting me on the right path. So I think in the upcoming future, definitely to stick with my coaching, and to keep learning, and also in terms of, I think maybe with my YouTube is more so to try and get, to try and form a channel for people to kind of understand what goes on within the game, especially fans. I think if sometimes if you can explain to them what happens between games, or how teams prepare, or what may have happened and whatnot, and I think I want to give them that kind of experience coming from someone who played at the club, and also from an ex-professional. I say ex-professional, but I am a professional, so I'm still a professional. So yeah, it's the future is, it's not set in stone. I take it each day as it comes. It's like every day is different. So, but I do have goals, and I do have targets within coaching and within social media, and starting up an academy, a Maghoma Academy. I do want to open out for young talent, to try and help them out, and working with other academies to try and build that. So there is a lot of things in the pipeline, and like I said, only time will tell. Like I said, this is one step at a time. I wish I could just snap my finger and have it, but it's one step at a time.
What we can do is we can put the links into your academy, and also maybe put the links in the description to your YouTube channel as well, just if anyone's watching, to direct them there.
Cool.
And you never know, in the future, we might be calling you Gaffer in a couple of years, yeah?
Listen, that's one thing I do not want to be called. Do you know what I mean? If anyone calls me Gaffer, I try to tell even the young kids that I coach, like, don't call me coach, don't call me Gaffer. Just call me Jack. That's it. Like, you just call me by my first name. I think that's what I would want to be called. Like, just call me Jack. That's it.
Jack, thanks so much for talking today.
No problem, mate.
Thank you, mate.
My pleasure.